Hey guys, it's Hink here once again, trying to keep up my promises and deliver y'all some videos on a regular basis, ideally every day this week. So a couple of things about me that many of you might know, many of you don't. So I am actually a real life physician. I'm actually at work right now. There's a conference room right beside my office that I'm in, and the reason why I wear all this crap is because I try to keep my anonymity because as a physician, if people knew that I was a dick doc, it could somehow influence my career or changes in. So anyways, I just like to protect my anonymity, and I'm trying to figure out ways where you can actually see my mouth moving, and that is a little challenging. I even bought this little fake beard thing off Amazon just because I want to hide, pretty much all of my facial features. But so anyways, if anybody has any suggestions on better ways to protect my anonymity, keeping in mind that I'm basically like a 40-year-old person that is very not technologically literate. So, don't offer me some like fancy editing because I'm recording this using a water bottle and books to prop up this iPhone, and I'm using my AirPods because I'm super cool. And and I'm using the iMovie software to edit this today. I'm trying to pump out some more videos to give it to my editor ahead of time to crank out some content, but in the meantime, this is what I'm reduced to. But that's enough of the preamble. So today we're going to be discussing hemosiderin staining, basically discoloration in PE, specifically in how it regards to PE, how it happens, etc. And so the first thing we need to talk about is, what exactly is hemosiderin staining? And so hemosiderin staining is basically just when you have any kind of blood that leaks through the vessel and gets out into the subcutaneous, below the skin, below cutaneous skin, the cutaneous area, and actually deposits there. So blood has a component of iron, and so in particular, there's something called hemoglobin. Okay, it's responsible for transporting your oxygen, and so the hemoglobin itself is the culprit. And so the hemoglobin leaks through the vein and actually goes out into that subcutaneous tissue, and then when it starts to break down, it releases iron. So iron is what actually causes that dark discoloration, that iron component is what we call the hemosiderin, and so that dark staining is called hemosiderin staining. In PE, we just basically call it discoloration. And so, who gets this? Well, primarily, obviously, the point in doing this is just to talk about PE, and so people who are doing PE primarily. Exercises that are working on usually girth and that are actually increasing the pressure in the penis. And so what happens is, let's say you pump up your pump, you have negative pressure that's created. That negative pressure actually draws out the blood into that cutaneous tissue, and that's when the hemosiderin staining process starts. And so where else do you see this? The reason why I know about hemosiderin staining is because it's very common in people that have heart conditions. And so when you're talking about like somebody who has chronic heart failure or congestive heart failure rather, their blood is not being pumped appropriately throughout their body, so it sits in areas like the lanes, like the legs, the veins of the leg, and the distal extremities. And the blood slowly can leak out of those vessels because it's not pumping and it's not getting out of that area. And when that happens, the same thing: hemoglobin, iron, hemosiderin staining. And so a big question that comes up is does this matter? And so honestly, the short answer is it matters if it matters to you from a PE perspective purely. If you're having heart issues and you have this in your legs, that's a big deal. You need to get that corrected. But purely just discoloration in the veins, it's not a huge deal. Discoloration in the penis, it's not a huge deal unless it matters to you. Some people are like very concerned about the cosmetic outcome, the cosmetic appeal of their penis, and having discoloration can be a big deal. And so, I'm actually black, even though I'm light skinned, even though, it always comes up on Reddit, you're black, oh, I had no idea based on your pictures. It's like, yeah, that's part of the reason why I do black and white as well, once again, to help with the anonymity. But My penis is naturally darker, and so therefore it's not nearly as big of a deal when I have some additional discoloration. And for those that are not blessed with as much pigment, then it can be even more of a deal because it's more prominent. I think the more contrast there is, so like if you happen to be like blessed with a lot of melanin, then and you're already pretty black or brown, the discoloration is going to be minimally noticeable. And so I will tell you that my significant other has she's never said anything, at least. I don't think she's ever noticed. It's not that subtle, but it's been so gradual over time that I don't think it's been actually visualized or noticed by her. And I personally, I don't know of anybody that has reached out to me at least and said, hey, my significant other is noticing that it's darker. So that is something to keep in mind, that I do think it's pretty subtle. I personally don't think it's a big deal, but it's a personal thing for you. So what can we do to treat this? Well, the first thing you can do is to just stop doing PE, or stop doing what's causing it. So, there's ways that you can modify this. So like if pumping is causing your discoloration, then don't pump for so long. I think the higher the pressure and the longer the sets, the higher the risk of discoloration when we're talking about pumping. Same thing goes for clamping. M9, the username M9TER on Reddit. He's from A Job for You, but he talks about this with clamping, and that's why he recommends, I believe, 5-minute sets. But please go onto that sub and check him out and read what he has to say. So decreasing your set time and decreasing the pressure are going to relieve all that pressure on the vein and lead to less blood leaking through those veins and going into the tissue. I think the best overall therapy, if this really does bother you, is you need to get laser therapy. That's the only one that I would say is tried and true. I think that's the mainstay of treatment. Now, there's other things that can help, but laser therapy is the main one. The other thing that can help is actually just time. And so I ended up going on about a 3-month break, a couple different times actually, and my discoloration is nearly completely resolved. And I think with more time it would resolve. And that's abstaining from any kind of PE whatsoever. And so, just so you know, when I say PE, for those who don't, it means penile enlargement, basically. And so, other things that can help. So, BD, user, it's BD 1996-2015. Yes, I memorized it, so what? He has a technique that he called fire goat rolls, and I don't know if he originated it or what, but basically, you take your member in your hand and you kind of almost like you're creating friction. But what it does, it's kind of massaging those superficial tissues, and it's able to work some of that blood that might have leaked through the vessels out of that tissue quicker. And so I think of it more as a preventative measure, not as much a treatment measure, but it is effective. If you go on to the subreddit Getting Bigger, exactly like it spells, and just search for fire goat rolls, you'll see several topics on that. The other thing, and yeah, I'm a little bit of a fanboy, so what? But he also has this recovery pea cream that you can find on peakmalephysique.com. Creams in general, there's limited data for them. But if you actually look at the prominent discoloration creams, his recovery pea cream actually has a lot of the vitamins that are already recommended in that. And once again, I think it's about overall skin health. And if you use recovery pea, I don't think it's going to be like a night and day difference as far as discoloration. But I certainly think, especially when we're talking about over time, that you can notice it, and it can be a big deal as far as like long-term results. But if you want to support him, go to the Peak Male Physique. I wish I was sponsored, but I'm not. Maybe one day, BD. So we talked about the highest risk things, and it does resolve on its own. And so that's pretty much it as far as the discoloration goes. It's something that I would say to expect, primarily with, once again, girth exercises. I don't know of anybody that is doing any kind of like stretching or extending for length purposes that has suffered from any significant discoloration. The only caveat to that could be with using a vacuum cup, because you know, you have your head of the penis and you have your vacuum cup here, and it's kind of putting, drawing in that fluid into that subcutaneous tissue. But I've never seen anybody, or I've never heard of anybody talking about that discoloration just on like the glands of their penis or the head of the penis from that vacuum tip. So hopefully this is helpful. Once again, trying to pump out more of these videos, explaining more in detail, especially some of the more scientific components of what I do. I've said this, I say it basically with every post. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I just research a lot. I do have a medical background. I'm a U.S. medical doctor, board certified, and so it does help me kind of weed through the data better, and I also clearly have a pretty good understanding of the human anatomy because, that's what I trained for. So I'm not a urologist, I'm not an expert. Do your own research, form your own conclusions, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.